everybody? Welcome to BO Boys for Monday, December 12th. Fuck it. It's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, we had another sleepy weekend, but hopefully it's the last sleepy weekend we have for a long time. So why don't you give us a plow for the final sleepy weekend of Friday, December 11th? What was this weekend?
December 9th.
December 9th. For the weekend of Friday, December 9th. That's how sleepy it was. I can't remember the date.
Yeah. Well, somebody's sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever made $11.1 million, down 37%. It lost 130 theaters. It is at $409.8 million in its fifth frame. Number two, Violent Night made $8.7 million, down only 35%. It added 41 theaters. It's at $26.6 million in its second frame. Number three, Strange World made $3.6 million, down 29%. It lost 614 theaters. It's at $30.4 million in its third weekend. Number four, The Menu made $2.7 million, down 22%. Lost 100 theaters. It's at $29 million in its fourth frame. And number five, Devotion made $2 million, down 27%. It added 53 theaters. It's at $16.9 million in its third frame. And that is your top five.
All right, Clayton. So here to me is one of the big stories that I don't think we've even given enough attention to, and that's Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Now, this movie, number one for 5 weekends in a row, made 11.1 million, which means it continued the streak. The streak didn't die. We had a movie that made double-digit millions this week, which was in danger, but Black Panther: Wakanda Forever comfortably made that 11 million. And here's what I'll say about this movie. This movie carried the box office for over a month.
Mm-hmm.
The studios have not been releasing anything major. The schedule since August has been a disgrace. And I think we should just cut the shit right now. It has been a total disgrace what the studios have done basically since Bullet Train, barely releasing big movies, barely giving the theaters enough product to survive, enough big product to survive. And for the last 5 weeks, Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever has carried theatrical, saved theatrical, been the bridge all the way to Avatar 2, The Way of Water. And it did it again this weekend. This movie has made $409 million domestic in its 5 weeks. It's pacing ahead of Doctor Strange. It is a movie that I feel in some ways we've slept on just how big it's been, but how important it has been.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the first Black Panther, when that came out years ago, it did an insane number. It was a phenomenon, but it didn't have to carry the box office at that time because studios were releasing movies at a normal clip. That's not the case now. Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever carried theatrical for 5 weeks. It hands theatrical over to James Cameron and Avatar: Way of Water. And I think we need to salute. And you know what? I'm calling it on the fly right here. We need to clap for Wakanda Forever. I'm calling
It's
a
too
clap.
early for me to clap. You can clap.
I'm going to clap for it because I clap for it at the point where it hands over the box office to Avatar 2. So, okay, solo clap. I'm clapping for this movie
Well,
right
I
now.
will clap for it, but it's
I'm clapping
7:30 in the
for it.
morning. I don't want to wake someone up.
I'm clapping for it. I'll wake my wife up right now, and if she tells me, why are you clapping, why'd you wake me up so early, I'm gonna say it's because Wakanda Forever carried the box office for 5 straight goddamn weeks.
Wow. Good luck with that.
There we go. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. What do you have to say to any of that, Clayton?
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think we've talked about how Black Panther is not getting its accolades because it's not the phenomenon that the first one was, and nothing would be, right? But this is becoming the most successful Marvel movie in a long time, not counting the Sony Spider-Man and the three Spider-Men in it. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this is it's funny to say that this is like a sneaky hit, but
Hmm.
people haven't been talking about it.
Right, right. It's a $409 million and counting sneaky under the radar hit,
Yeah.
but you're right. That is what this is because we got sort of spoiled by the success of that original Black Panther. And I think Wakanda Forever has done more than it ever needed to do.
Mhm.
But it did. It carried theatrical on its shoulders because Black Adam was, as I've been saying for a long time, has been a failure, and Wakanda Forever had to shoulder more responsibility than it ever thought it was going to need to do.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Black Panther,
Hmm.
Wakanda Forever, we got an email. The email we were talking about last episode, which,
Hmm.
if you listened to our last episode, which you did because it's blowing up,
Blowing up huge.
we teased an email from a Wannabe person, and that
Hmm.
person is Chanel,
Hmm.
who writes, "Hey guys, I'm a black woman from Toronto, and I've recently discovered your podcast and have been enjoying your episodes. I just listened to the episode you released on Wakanda Forever's $181 million weekend. I think you both had some fair arguments as you dissected the film's performance, an accolade I cannot give to many other white critics slash analysts in the industry after hearing their wild takes. I do, however, think you are far too generous in excusing the white audience's diminished interest in the film. Quote, perhaps white Marvel nerds tied themselves in the basement so as to not disturb black audiences grieving. How benevolent. Laughing, crying face. This second installment in the franchise, void of the intrigue and curiosity attached to the first, didn't attract as many white moviegoers because it didn't center them or stories they could directly relate to, and that's okay. I also appreciate that you reviewed demographic statistics from that weekend. However, I'm curious, how often do you pull up these statistics for other movies? In your most recent discussion about Glass Onion or The Menu and other films underperforming, why not also discuss how many of these films appeal primarily to a white audience and didn't pull in other demos? It goes both ways. Anyway, just some gentle criticism and conversation starters. I'm enjoying the podcast regardless. Thanks. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I
Hmm.
think Pat would take umbrage with The Menu underperforming, number one.
The menu is
But
doing great. It just passed the box office total of Ready or Not and of Midsommar. So yeah, the menu is not underperforming. It's doing great.
but I will say we did mention when She Said came out and bombed
Hmm.
that that was a predominantly white female movie and
Hmm.
nobody else came out for that. And that is why it bombed. So we do mention them. I don't know if we mention them as much as we can, but I do think it is important to talk about demographics, and very much so because when you're looking at the box office and who actually goes, it sometimes is not really talked about how much people other than white people make make movies successful, in the sense of, like, look at horror movies, which, you know Brett from the New Flesh has talked about, and we agree is like the most consistent film you can put out that earns money is a horror movie in theatrical. And when you look at those demographic breakdowns, they are really diverse.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so if you
Everyone goes to horror. Everyone wants to be scared for their life.
and so if you're going to have a hit, you need to have that sort of diversity. Anytime you over index in a specific area, you're just not going to have a hit. It's just not possible. And so demographics are really important. And yes, we were being, I think, a little bit too nice to the white Marvel nerds. And believe us, we will never be that nice again.
No, that's the nicest we'll ever be to white Marvel nerds that day. Mark it on your calendar. The opening weekend episode of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. That is the most credit we give white Marvel nerds. It ends
But
there.
keep listening, and thank you for the conversation starter and the criticism. We love it.
Yes. Yes. No, she is totally right. We need to give those demographic stats, whatever they are available for big movies. So right here, we promise a little tease on our episode next week where we go over the opening weekend of Avatar: The Way of Water. We will go over all the available demographic stats. We will let you know white people, black people, whoever the statistics that go, and blue people. Do blue people show up for Avatar: Way of Water? We will hold blue people accountable for this movie. So
So you're
it'll be
talking
here.
about people that have painted themselves.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. At that point, I think if you paint yourself to be a Na'vi, is that what the aliens in that movie are called?
Navi.
Na'vi. If you paint yourself to be a Na'vi, then I think that should be counted in the demographic breakdown. So,
Well,
that's
that will show the popularity of that movie because if
yes,
you're that hardcore, you
yes,
know what I mean,
yes.
to paint yourself blue, then that means that movie's going to be a success, which we all know it's going to.
Yes, that'll be a great statistic for Avatar: Way of Water. If on Monday we're looking at biggest opening weekend ever, and you've got a 20% blue person statistic there, that would be huge for them.
Now, I do have a heart out, so we need to kind of rip through these next few movies. But I think you probably want to talk a little bit about this Violent Night Hold, which is down only 35%.
I mean, don't you find that incredible? A second weekend, and listen, this isn't a movie that opened at like 50 million, but it did open at over 13 million. So,
Mm-hmm.
and a wide release. So that type of movie should still be dropping 50+% easy, if not 60%. And it's a gimmicky movie. It's Santa Claus in an action movie. So you would think a gimmicky movie that opens to double digits in its first weekend, its second weekend, it's going to drop 50, 60%. It only dropped 35%. So obviously what this tells us is people really like this movie and people are coming out of it and telling their friends, you got to check this out.
Well,
And that's obviously this movie is going to live and die on word of mouth, and it seems to be living really well. Santa Claus is coming to town right now.
we're not critics, huh?
Huh.
But I will say, and I'm not to blow up your spot here, Pat, but you did something similar with me. You saw
Yep.
this film and you said you really liked it. You thought David Harbour's performance was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
They took the premise to the max,
Mm-hmm.
is I think a quote
Oh
from
yes, I
you.
use to the max a lot. Yeah.
And that was word of mouth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm more likely to see that movie now than I was before,
Mm-hmm.
which is still not likely, but
Mm-hmm.
there was no way in hell I was seeing this movie before you said anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had gotten good word of mouth from a fellow friend of the podcast, past and future guest, Erin Rose Chan, had
Mm.
been on this podcast, and she saw this movie and opening night, because she sees things opening night. She's just a machine. And she said this was really good. And that was part of playing it to my decision to see it in its second weekend. That and the fact that it is a successful box office hit. This is the
Yeah.
type of movie that if it bombed, you would stay far away from it, because you're not going to go see the gimmicky Santa Claus action movie that also has already been rejected.
Yeah.
But the fact that it opened strong and now it's holding strong, I think this gives people the permission they needed to go see this, to ask their partner, do you want to go see this movie? And I think that's important, because if this movie was a disaster at the box office, people are not, even if they're interested in seeing it themselves, they're not going to their partner and saying, hey, do you want to go see Violent Night? You know, that movie that's completely tanking and being rejected at the box office. That's not going to happen, but it's a hit with a great hold. So you've got that ammunition you need to go to your partner and say, why don't we go see this thing?
Yeah. And even like, I don't care how strong your relationship is, if you
Mm-hmm.
drag your partner to a film that already has the stink of failure, you walk in the theater, there's three people there, one of them's in a trench coat.
Right.
That's gonna be bad.
Totally. Listen, I have been with my wife for 12 years now,
Hmm.
between dating, marriage time, you add it up, you get the final total.
I think your
We've
first
been,
movie together was Cedar Rapids, right? Was that the
yes,
first movie?
it was Cedar Rapids, and we survived that.
Hmm.
We survived that, which I
And
think
that's
shows
rough, yeah.
it was rough. That was with some rough waters, but we survived that. But as strong a relationship as anyone has, it could only survive so many bad movie experiences, so many of one person taking the other person to a movie that they hate. You only have so many of those. And as
Hmm.
strong as our relationship is, there's a number. There's a number of bad theatrical experiences that could end this, even if everything else is going great, which it is.
Hmm.
And you don't want to rack those numbers up. And Violent Night was not that. I took her to that. I was the impetus for us going. She was very skeptical about it. She had a great time. She loved it. Came out of it talking sequels. The two of us are sitting there
Wow.
at the Nighthawk Bar, Trees Lounge, great place. You got to stop by. I may be there, I may not be there. But we were talking about the movie afterwards, and we were sitting there talking about what sequels they should make. So that is huge to have someone who is very wary of going at all, who leaves the movie talking about sequels they want to see. That shows that people are liking this movie. That shows that people who were not into the premise initially are liking this movie. And I think we got to give it to David Harbour, who we talked a little bit about it after the opening weekend. He's really turning himself into a possible B movie genre star with this. And the
Hmm.
second weekend really props him up to be someone who could hold this type of movie going forward.
We need that sort of mid-budget actionaire
Yep.
star to emerge, and David Harbour seems to have all the goods.
Yep. He's a big guy. He's imposing, but he's sympathetic because he's not Schwarzenegger, you
Hmm.
know, and he's funny. This movie requires him to do a lot of comedy. He's sympathetic. He seems like a nice dude, which is what you want, but he's got an edge to him, and he's got the built-in Stranger Things audience.
Which is huge, which is
Yeah.
huge. Now, Pat,
Yes.
I'm gonna make you and wannabe intern Christopher happy right now because I'm gonna give you 1 minute undisturbed, uninterrupted to talk about the menu, which has Just Beat Ready or Not
Mm-hmm.
and what was the other one? Ari Aster's film
Midsommar.
Midsommar at the
Okay.
box office. Two very strong comps to this movie. So here you go. Here's a minute for you to talk uninterrupted about your pet movie, The Menu.
All right. Well, I mean, I start off by saying I don't appreciate it being called my pet movie because the menu is not just my movie, it's America's movie right now. It is clear that all of America has embraced this movie. It's up to $29 million domestic for a small searchlight comedy thriller about rich people going to an island for food. And you would think, okay, that's a movie that's going to come and go. That's a movie with a premise that is going to maybe play well on the coast for a weekend and that's it. No, this movie has now made more money than Ready or Not. This movie, The Menu, has made more movie than Ari Aster's Midsommar. This movie is going to get over $30 million total easy. And that is not what anyone expected. People love this movie. This is a huge win for Anya Taylor-Joy. It's a huge win for Ray Fiennes. And I think this is a box office that could catapult a small searchlight film into Oscar nom 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 territory. This movie is about food. The menu is about food. It's about people who say nom 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 when they eat. But no, this movie now, because of its box office, could be about Oscar nom nom noms. I'm talking screenplay. I'm talking, yes, best actor Ray Fiennes. That is how good this box office is, how surprising this box office is, that we could see Ray Fiennes get a best actor nom 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 from the menu. And that would be this movie getting its just desserts.
Great. And let the record show I did not interrupt.
Thank
Now,
you.
let's talk about a movie that we saw this weekend with the aforementioned Aaron,
Mm-hmm.
not your
Mm-hmm.
wife, the other Aaron,
The other Aaron.
that is in limited release and is the biggest limited release hit in 6 theaters
Mm-hmm.
of the year, beating out Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Mm-hmm.
At once, fuck it, it's a raw feed. It grossed 360,000
Thousand.
per screen.
No, it grossed
Oh, sorry, 360
360,000 total,
with a
60,000 per screen.
60,000 per screen. Thank you. When we're talking about Darren Aronofsky's The Whale, starring Brendan Fraser. Now, here's the thing. I and you are
Mm-hmm.
not going to talk about the many issues this movie may have when it comes to public perception, when it comes to obesity and things like that, right? We're not going to tackle that. We're not critics, huh?
When I could, huh?
This show is not about that. It's not about the quality of this movie.
No, huh?
The focus here and what stood out to me when we watched this film, because I'm always a wannabe boy.
Mm-hmm.
Not a wannabe boy. I am a BO boy.
Yeah, you've made it.
I've made it. I'm always a BO boy at heart. I'm always thinking BO terms. And we watched this movie, and the takeaway that I had for the success of this movie and whether or not it should go wide, because we got slips of paper because we're coastal elites and we went and saw this movie on Saturday night, opening weekend, in one of the 9 theaters it was playing at. And we were given a survey to take for the filmmakers to peruse in order to figure out how they're going to make this movie go wide or if they're going to make this movie go wide, right? So we had some say in this.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I would say, and I did say on this survey, is that this movie is anti concessions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that is really not good, right? Because concessions are the lifeblood of theaters. And that, if you are a movie theater chain, you do not want a movie that so strongly makes people against candy bars
Yes.
and pizza
Yes.
and the fundamental things that make theaters run. Right?
Yes.
There's a scene
Yes.
in this movie where eating two Three Musketeers is like a breaking point, is like the most disgusting thing you could do. And that is not a message I would want a movie playing in my theater to have.
No, no. There is a shot of candy. It's all about the filmmaker's POV, and the camera hates the candy in this movie. There is a shot when a character opens a drawer filled with candy, and you would think someone had just opened a drawer and had found corpses in there.
Well, it's like a
Had opened a
trap, like a
drawer
saw
and
trap. Like
yes,
it was shot, and the music was like a saw trap when
yes,
he opens
yes,
the drawer and there's a bunch of candy in it. And
yep.
it's like, and then doubly, it's like, I know what you're saying out there, but Clayton, people buy concessions before they go see a movie, so it's not going to matter. No, no, no. Here's what happens with this film, also on a different level, is that people are not going to want to eat during this film.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those are
Mm-hmm.
just the facts. I'm not commenting on anything else. I'm just saying that they're not going to want to eat during this film. So they walk in, they've got their nachos, they've got their sody, they've got their
Juji fruits.
jujubes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're sitting there, previews. It's going good. It's going good. Movie starts. They're like, I'm going to return this. I need to return this food.
Right.
So you're going to get a lot of food returns, which you can't resell. You just can't. You can't resell a open box of Juji fruits.
There's no street value on those.
And then the word of mouth is going to be, if anybody recommends this movie, which that's up in the air, don't buy any concessions because
Right.
you won't eat them.
Right.
That is death for a theater.
Right.
So
Right.
if I'm a theatrical chain, I'm saying, hey, I don't want this movie in my theater because concessions are what keeps this place going and the lights on, and we already have enough problems in theatrical at the moment.
Right. Right. This movie is just a damning portrayal of candy and of food in general. And if you were a theater owner who's sitting in the back of the room watching this movie, maybe for the first time in your own theater, and you're watching people watch The Whale, and you're watching people look at this horrific portrayal of food and of snacks, and the way that the filmmaker clearly wants us to hate snacks. Again, the shot of the Three Musketeers and of a character eating Three Musketeers as if they were basically being put to death is something that must make theater owners just their eyes roll to the back of their heads, must make them angry, must make them scared, because it's going to make audiences hate concessions. And, The Whale doing big business or doing good business may be a double-edged sword, because the theater owners, they want that ticket money. But if The Whale gets bigger, and if The Whale travels further and further, and if The Whale goes wider, it could be a negative ad campaign for concessions. So if you're a theater owner, at this point, you might be rooting against The Whale's success, because at what cost does that Whale success come for your concessions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll follow this story because there's a lot of me that thinks that this initial burst and the fact that this movie is getting such good numbers in such small theaters is that it's a looky-loo situation. You're getting a lot of looky-loos, right?
Yep.
Everything Everywhere All at Once became a hit, and it started slow, and it started slower than I thought it was going to. And I knew it was going to break out, but I thought it was going to break out sooner than it did. But this movie is not a grower. It's a shower.
Yep.
And I think we're gonna see that. And this movie is probably not even gonna go wide because I think A24 doesn't really know what to do with this movie. And it feels to me like it's gonna be in a few hundred theaters and then PVOD. That's the inkling I got from the questions they were asking us on those surveys.
Yeah.
So we'll see, Pat. We'll see.
And
We're gonna be following The Whale like Captain Ahab.
Yep, tracking it. And hopefully The Whale does not lead us to go crazy and plummet to our deaths. But you never know. You never know what any of these movies. It's all a crapshoot. Based on the audience response from the screening we were at, I am not confident, like you say, that The Whale is going to go very wide. It did not seem to have that rapturous. Let's just say this was not the Venice Film Festival 48-minute standing ovation or whatever that was. That's not what happened when we saw The Whale this weekend. There were some disgruntled exiting theater goers, and not just because they didn't feel like eating their candy.
Well, Pat, and we don't have any demo breakdowns for this movie, which I wish we did, but once we get those, we will definitely share those.
Yes.
Because that would be very interesting to me.
Yes, just who saw The Whale. We want to know, but maybe
who was whale watching this weekend. Now, Pat, I have a heart out, so
you've got a heart out.
Gotta go. But what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, everyone, the big news is you got to join us on our next episode, because the next time we're on air, next time you hear us, it's going to be the weekend preview for Avatar: The Way of Water. And Clayton, just a reminder, I don't know if you remember this, but we have a big special guest who's joining us on this preview episode. It's Danny from I Screen, You Scream, Four
The number
Movies, the number
4.
four. Huge returning guest. This is one of his most anticipated movies of the year. He is hyping this up. If you go to I Screen, You Scream, Four Movies, number 4, he's got a preview episode for Avatar that should be dropping any minute now. It should already be there. And he will be on our weekend preview episode. Finally, Clayton, we have a gigantic movie to look forward to. It's going to be
Yes.
one of, if not the biggest movie of the year. This is as big as it gets. And the next episode of the BO Boys will be previewing it. So email us at theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your Avatar Way of Water predictions. We want to gauge the temperature from the wanna BO boys, wanna BO girls, wanna BO people on this huge movie. So email us as soon as you can so we could get it in there for the weekend preview episode with Danny. It's going to be huge. The BO Boys podcast @gmail.com. And of course, hang out with us over on social media at the BO Boys Pod. Right now, we're on Twitter, exclusive clips, video clips, not just audiograms, but we got some video clips straight from the recording sessions. It's just getting bigger and bigger and better, just like the whale. We keep going further and further and growing. And join us at the BO Boys Pod on Twitter and other social media platforms to come.
And depending on how well these clips do, I will upgrade my webcam so it doesn't look like I'm shooting myself on a Nokia flip phone.
Yes. So the more support you give us, the more retweets and hearts and social media plaudits we get for these videos. Clayton will then be inspired to not look like he's making a kidnapping proof of life video.
Mm-hmm. Well, Pat, I don't think there's anything left to say.
No.
Except until next time.
We'll smell you at the box office.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.